All right, I think we're getting started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us. We know your time is valuable and your opinions and recommendations are critically important to us. We hope to have a productive and meaningful discussion on energy access and reliability in your communities. This may be the first time many of you have engaged with our office. Welcome, and we look forward to building relationships with you. And for those who are familiar with our program, we also welcome you and look forward to strengthening our relationships. Slide 2, please. Oops. Sorry, my computer being funny. The agenda for today will cover IE's introductions and information about our program. We will then go into the purpose and background of this event. Afterward, we will go into individual sections of the mandated report with associated polling questions. Then, with the majority of the time, we will have an open roundtable discussion where we can explore additional topics and hear from you directly. In slide 3. By way of introduction, my name is Wahla Johns. I am a member of Navajo, and we call ourselves the Nez tribe. And my clans are Shihinishle, Dok, Ashe, Bashishin, Izasane Dashiche, Adokia Ani Dashanele. I'm from an area called Twinjone, which is located in northern Arizona. And my background is in renewable energy and community organizing. I have co-founded 2 indigenous-led organizations and focused on building renewable energy power and workforce development, but also looking at some of the environmental justice topics in our communities. I am deeply honored to work with the Office of Indian Energy, and I have been in this role for about 9 months now. So I'm really excited to learn from you and to hear all your voices today. I'll pass it to the next slide to Lazana.
Thank you, Director Johns. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Lazana Pierce. Unfortunately, I don't have video. I apologize for that. I have been in the energy development industry for about 25 more years and have really had the pleasure and the privilege of working with Indian tribes and Alaska Native villages and tribal organizations for over 20 years now. I'm a mechanical engineer by degree. My current position as deployment supervisor for the office, I support the Department of Energy's Office of Indian Energy Policy and Programs by executing the deployment program, which consists of financial assistance, technical assistance, and education and outreach. Additionally, I manage the National Funding Opportunity announcements and have acted as a project officer for many grants over the years. I want to welcome you and thank you again, and we look forward to working with you. Next slide, please.
Osio Nagata. Hello, everyone. My name is Tommy Jones, and I'm from Jones, Oklahoma. I am on my father's side, Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, and mother's side, Naknek Native Village and Bristol Bay Native Corporation. I began my time with the program first in 2014 when I was completing my PhD. I interned for the office through Sandia National Laboratories and worked for the office in the DC office as well. And then in 2016, after graduating, I became a federal contractor for the office in Golden, Colorado. And that is where I still am today. And this past November, I became a federal employee. I am the deployment specialist for the office, and I work closely with Lazana and Director Johns to help carry out the program initiative. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
So in addition to myself, Lazana, and Tommy, the office is comprised of 9 other federal staff, so it's a total of 12. We are duty stationed in Washington, D.C., Golden, Colorado, and Anchorage, Alaska. We also have some contract support at headquarters here in D.C., a contractor team in Golden, Colorado, supporting financial assistance and grants and agreements across the nation. We also have a memorandum of understanding with EERE that helps with financial assistance, legal, NEPA support from the Golden Field office. We also have GIT support from the NREL, National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and Sendia Labs, Sendia National Laboratory. Next slide, please. So to stay up to date on energy issues affecting Indian country, ICWIG, or Indian Country Energy and Infrastructure Working Group, was formed to inform and advise our office. ICWIG is composed of a diverse group of Indian tribes and Alaska Native tribal leaders, aiming to guide policy and program prioritization and long-term strategy related to energy and infrastructure development on tribal lands. Next slide, and I'm going to hand this over to Lazana.
Thank you, Director Johns. As was advocated for and by the tribes, the Office of Indian Energy was established and incorporated into the Energy Policy Act of 2005. The Office of Indian Energy was actually stood up in about 2011, and it's about one of a dozen assistant secretarial level offices within the department. The office was authorized again under the Energy Policy Act of 2005 and is charged, pardon me, charged by Congress to promote Indian energy development, efficiency, and use, to reduce or stabilize energy costs, to enhance and strengthen Indian tribal energy and economic infrastructure, and to bring electric power and services to Indian lands and homes. And you'll see throughout the presentation a number of co-funded projects, tribal projects, but we won't go through each of those, but I will invite everyone to join us for our annual program review being held virtually the week of November 15th, and you can hear directly from the tribes and their energy development efforts. Next slide, please. So the office has a three-pronged approach to meeting our statute, which includes financial assistance through competitive grants, technical assistance offered at no charge to Indian tribes and tribal entities, and education and capacity building. These three prongs are intended to assist Indian tribes and other tribal entities overcome those unique regulatory, technical, and economic challenges to developing their vast energy resources if and how they so choose. Next slide, please. So since 2010, the Office of Indian Energy has invested over $100 million in more than 190 tribal energy projects across the contiguous 48 states and Alaska. These projects are valued at over $180 million. Through these grants, the Office of Indian Energy continues its efforts in partnership with Native communities to maximize the deployment of clean energy solutions for the benefit of American Indians and Alaska Natives. The deployment of energy projects in those communities has had really some tangible impacts, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. Next slide, please. So of those investments, 90 of those were hardware, energy hardware installations, and DOE invested $75 million in those projects. They were valued at $140 million. And just to give you a sense of some of the tangible impacts, those funds installed more than 40 megawatts of new generation in Indian country, more than 7 megawatt hours of battery storage, over $12.6 million saved by those communities every year, and over $275 million over the life of those systems. For every dollar that DOE invested, there's a return, a savings of $3.68, and those projects have affected over 8,000 tribal buildings across the nation. So again, huge impacts. Next slide, please. So besides financial assistance, the office also offers technical assistance at no cost to tribes and eligible tribal entities, which includes providing technical advice and assistance from energy experts. This is designed to help move energy projects forward or to help in the energy planning stage. We do realize that tribes are at various levels, stages of energy development, from beginning to create their vision of what they want their energy future to be, to quantifying their energy resources, all the way to the other end, which is being ready for shovel-ready projects. The technical assistance supports tribes and tribal communities regardless of where they are in their energy journey by providing technical and financial analysis or facilitating and assisting with energy planning. This technical assistance is intended as a short-term support to address specific challenges or to fulfill a particular need that's essential to a current project's successful implementation. The intended result of this assistance is tangible projects or specific deliverables to help move your projects forward. These technical assistance requests can be submitted by a tribal, authorized tribal representative, and it's a simple online form you can get from our website, which is at energy.gov/Indian Energy. I might also say that there's a couple of other opportunities that might be worth exploring. The Community LEAP opportunity is for additional technical assistance, and that is valued at about $16 million, and they're looking to support 24 to 36 communities. And you can find that announcement on our website, and the applications are due December 17th. Another technical assistance opportunity through the department is under the Energy Storage and Social Equity Initiative, which again is technical assistance for energy storage options. And you can find that on our current funding opportunities page. So just a couple other technical assistance. We do have a technical assistance page on our website that shows other ongoing technical assistance offerings from other agencies as well. Next slide, please. So there's a wealth of information on the website, informational resources that include an energy resource library, online curriculum. We also have monthly webinars and periodic workshops, Another resource is our Tribal Energy Atlas, which is the first of its kind interactive geospatial application to hopefully help tribes conduct some of their own analysis into energy development. Next slide, please. So again, more pictures. I think they're definitely more telling than I can do more justice to the projects than I can. So here you see examples of tribal projects in Alaska, New York, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Colorado, just a few examples of the projects funded. Next slide, please. And a few more examples of tribal projects that we've had the pleasure to co-fund. And I might just say that, part of our mission really is basically to assist tribes and tribal communities in achieving whatever their energy vision might be. And we look forward to working with you. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we typically have an annual program review in the fall. The last year and again this year will be virtual. It's I think a unique opportunity for tribes to share information with each other, celebrate those successes, learn from some of the challenges, and it's a great networking opportunity as well. So we will be having that virtually the week of November 15th. If you're interested, you can register online on our website at energy.gov/Indian Energy. Now I'm going to pass the baton back to Tommy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next slide, please. So now we're going to get into the Congressional Report. And the next few slides will be about providing background on each section of the report, along with follow-up questions, polling questions. And so we hope to move through this pretty quickly because we want to have a majority of this time set for hearing directly from each of you. So this past year, the enaction of the Energy Act of 2020 included specific requirements for the Department of Energy to conduct research and report back to Congress. And they want to know about energy access and reliability on tribal lands. And so that is why we're all here today. Next slide, please. And so the purpose of this meeting, the goal, is so that we can gain important insight directly from each of you on this call about the current status of unelectrified homes and electricity reliability issues facing your communities, among other topics, which we'll go over soon. And we want to provide you the opportunity to make recommendations on the development of this report and later in findings of this assessment. As such, we'll have a follow-up session next year to go over the findings of this report. But we know the best information, the most accurate information, and the best way that we can offer our ability to help is to know the real problems that Indian communities are facing out there. And so your participation is critically important in helping us develop this report so that it reflects your input and addresses the issues that your communities are really facing. And so what happens from here is we will take this information and see the best ways that we can integrate it programmatically or address the issues that you are bringing up, because we know that these issues need to be addressed. And so we appreciate your participation, your comments, and we look forward to the discussion. So next slide, please. And so this is the start of the report. Not all the slides are going to look as busy as this one, but generally this was the language for the report requires that we compare this to non-tribal data as well. And so we're looking at American Community Survey data. There's a lot of data related to a lot of communities in the United States that we can compare this to. We also are supposed to meet with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the North American Energy Reliability Corporation. And we have met with both of these entities to see what kind of data is available and to work together to get this report finished. And so we can go to the next slide. And so again, I want to remind everyone that the polling questions and the different sections that we're looking at here, there may be a lot of things in your community that aren't addressed. And so when the roundtable discussion comes up, please address those issues so that we can know that what's happening out there. And the first section of this report here goes on to say that it's due 18 months after the enactment of the Act. And so that looks around June 2022. And so that's our timeline on working on this. And so the first section that we're going to cover is related to generation, transmission, and distribution assets available in your communities. And so we can go to the next slide. And so what do we mean by these assets? Generation resources can be conventional or renewable, such as coal, biomass, natural gas, solar, wind, hydro. Transmission is poles and distribution lines. That's an example of that. And distribution assets, something like a substation, which is essentially between generation and the consumer, and transformers. Also, if you have a microgrid in your community, you may own several aspects of these assets. Next slide, please. And so we wanted to make sure that everyone was able to respond. If on the polling questions, they're going to be single choice, multiple choice, or fill in a blank. And so if you're going to add a comment and your sidebar is not open, this is the instructions for opening it. There's an orange expander there at the top, and you can expand. And then when you see the chat box, you can expand that as well, so you can have more room to move around in there and see what you're typing. And so next slide. And so this is what the polling questions will look like. And so they will pop up in the GoToWebinar. You don't have to go anywhere else for this. And you will just select the answer that best fits. Next slide, please. And if you're submitting another comment, please submit a comment in the questions tab and enter the question, the number of the question before responding. And so for the first question we ask if you could put a number 1 and then your response if you're going to do that. And again, if you have any technology issues, please email indianenergy@hq.doe.gov. Okay, next slide. And so as a reminder, we're looking at generation, transmission, and distribution assets. And we will go into our first polling question. All right. For everyone who has not yet responded to the poll, please do so. We will be closing it here shortly. Okay. And Kim, if you see that we're getting close to a high percentage of responses, we can move on to the next question.
We are currently sitting at 56%.
Okay, we'll give folks another minute or so here on this. And so if you do not know, please just submit a question comment saying that unknown. Okay, I think that we will close this question and move on to the next. So our next polling question, how many distinct non-tribal utilities serve your tribal community or communities? And please select 1, 2, 3, or 4 or other. And please leave a comment in the questions box if it is other. Okay, I think, are we looking good on this one, Kim?
It looks like things have slowed down.
Okay. Well, we can go on to the next question to keep moving. So the final question for this section topic is there existing infrastructure in a community that could be extended to electrify homes that are currently unelectrified? And so please select 1, yes, no, or don't know. Alrighty, that should be enough time for folks to answer. If people are having technical issues in responding quickly, let us know and we can take more time on these. But thank you. We can close this question. And as a reminder, if you do have questions about technical issues, please submit to either the question chat box or through the email. Okay, we can go on to the next slide, please. And so section 2 is about price of electricity. And so the report says a survey of the retail and wholesale prices of electricity available to households residing in tribal communities or on Indian land. And what wholesale prices may not be known by everyone, but retail prices for households, communities, that's something that you may know exactly what the cost is, and so if you do have the exact price, we are looking for that as well. The national average is about 14 cents per kilowatt hour, and so you can compare to that as well. And we understand that many communities present today have different costs, and that many have similar costs to the national average, and it can be all over. And so our questions will be more closely related to home costs. So first polling question. So the first question is, do you consider the cost of electricity to be high for households in your community? Yes, no, or I don't know. Alrighty, we can move on to the next question, which is the last question for this section. What is the cost of electricity for your households, for households residing in your community? And we have different responses here: less than 14 cents per kilowatt hour, 14 to 20 cents per kilowatt hour, 20 to 40 cents, above 40 cents. If you know the exact cost of electricity, please enter it into the question box. And remember to add the number of this question before your response. Okay, thank you for those of you who have responded. And I will like to note that if there's any of these questions that you weren't able to respond to while on here, you're more than welcome to send us those via email as well. And we can go to the next, please. Well, my computer just froze, and so I am unable to see the screen.
Okay, let me jump in here. Under Section 3, we're focusing on workforce, and the report requires a description of participation of tribal members in the electric utility workforce, including the workforce for construction and maintenance of renewable energy resources and distributed energy resources. And that'll be the subject of the next couple questions. Kim, could you bring up the next polling question, please? So the next question, question number 6, is, are there tribal members in your community that are directly a part of the energy job sector? The responses are yes, no, and if you have an estimate of how many tribal members are part of that sector, you can please put those in the question box under the question number 6. So you would type 6 and then supply your answer in the question box. And we're going to give it a minute and let people respond. Again, I just want to say that, you know, we really appreciate your input because, you know, there frankly is a woeful lack of statistical information for Indian country, and the more data we can have for Congress to address this problem, I think the better off we're going to be. So we'll just give it a little bit here to for people to respond, and then we'll move on.
Alrighty, I do have my screen back.
Okay, I'll let you take the next one, Tommy.
Alrighty. Okay, the next question we have is training and/or education needed to develop capacity for jobs in the energy sector. And so please select one, yes, no, or maybe. Okay, thank you for your responses on that. We can move on to the next polling question. And this is the final question for this section. What training and/or education is needed to support these types of jobs for tribal members? So whether your community is looking at renewable energy, conventional energy, operations and maintenance, weatherization or energy efficiency, or something other, what kind of training is needed? All right, thank you for your responses on that. We can move forward. To the next slide, please. So this section is a major aspect to the report. The percentage of households residing in tribal communities or on Indian land that do not have access to electricity. When considering responses to this, homes that are connected to the centralized grid or to a community-sized microgrid should be excluded. We're looking for responses that detail homes without connections to either of these. Frequent outages, even if it's connected to the grid, is not what we're looking for here. It's just homes who do not have access to electricity. And so we can go into the first polling question. First question is, are any households in your community not connected to the centralized grid or not connected to a community scale microgrid? And please select one, yes, no, or I don't know. Don't know. I will like to note that you may have already noticed, but no one else on the webinar can see your responses. So participants cannot see participants' responses to the polling question selection. Alrighty, thank you. I think we're done with this question. We can move on to the next. So the next question, how many households in your community are not connected to the grid? And if you do have an estimate of how many are not connected, please provide that in the question box if known. But select 1, 0, 1 to 50, 50 to 100, over 100. But again, add estimate to the question box or type unknown if you do not know at all. Alrighty, thank you for your responses. We can move on to the next polling question. What barriers exist to providing electric service to unelectrified homes in your community? And you can select all that apply on this question. We have financial, workforce, infrastructure, planning, or other. And please clarify in question box if you have an other comment there. And if you do not have any issues with this, please enter not applicable or NA. Okay, thank you for your responses on that. We'll move to the next question. Getting close to the end of questions here. How many electricity outages do you have in your community per month? And this can be grid connected or microgrid related as well. Just in general, how many outages do you have in your community per month? The selections are none, occasional outages, regular electricity outages occur each month, electricity outages occur often every month. Okay, great. Thank you for your responses on that. We'll move on to the next polling question. How long do the electricity outages typically last? And these are the ones that you experience in your communities. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, or not applicable. Alrighty, thank you for your responses to that. We'll move to the next question. If outages do occur, what are the causes of those electricity outages, if known? Fires, storms, inadequate infrastructure, end of the line or utility directed outages or planned outages, or other. And please clarify in the questions box if you have an other response to this. Great, thank you. We can move on to the next question. Oh, actually, we can back up to the previous slide. Distributed energy. Yes, the next slide, please. And I am frozen again, Lazana.
Okay. Section 5 of the report, they asked for distributed energy potential. So the question is going to be on the potential for distributed energy resources and how they can apply electricity to your households, in your communities or in tribal lands. So local resources could be using rooftop solar, natural gas turbines, microturbines, wind turbines, biomass, fuel cells, battery storage, etc. So the next question is going to talk about. Okay.
I'm back, Lazana. And to provide some more information on this, this typically refers to technology that generates electricity at or near where it will be used. And so that includes this community-generated energy resources like what Lazana just mentioned. And these can be grid-connected, decentralized, or off-grid, or maybe even in the form of a microgrid. And so we can go to the first question, please.
Tommy, I'm unable to reopen the previous question that we had up, number 15.
Okay, we'll go to the next question. What types, if any, of electricity generation do you currently have in your community? And you can select all that apply. And we have renewable energy, conventional energy, or none. Okay, thank you for your responses. We'll go to the next question. Does your community have a preference for renewable energy or conventional energy, or a mix of both? And please select one. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And we are on to our final section before we open up for the roundtable. And so this section is related to tribally owned utility potential. And the language of the Act says the potential for tribally owned electric utilities or electric utility assets to participate in or benefit from regional electricity markets. And so if you have a tribal utility, this will be very relevant to you. And so we'll begin with the first question. Does your community want its own tribal utility? If you have one already, you can enter that into the question box, or you can reply as yes. Okay, thank you all for your responses to that. We can move to our last question before starting the roundtable discussion. And that question is, do you have any agreements in place with a non-tribal utility or non-tribal utilities? Example, right-of-way, interconnection agreement, a WAPA allocation? Please select one, yes, no, or don't know. All righty. Thank you for your responses to that as well. And thank you all for your time and attention for those questions. They're going to help us considerably. And now we're going to move to the open roundtable discussion, and you can go to the next slide. And we do have topics to discuss if they're not active comments or recommendations from those of you who are on the call. However, this is the time we want to hear most from you. And so recommendations, comments, we are now in that section of the listening session. And so for those of you who have those kinds of comments, please share. And Kim, do we have anyone with their hand raised?
None noted at the second.
Okay. So we do have conversation topics to get more dialogue going. And so we can begin that with the next slide. And this may help folks to think about quick comments or recommendations. Generally, recommendations about how to carry out this report are much appreciated as well. So and as a reminder for these questions, they will not be the polling questions like we just went through. They're responses only through the question chat box. And again, please put the question number before your response. And we can go on to the first question topic area. So, do you have plans to develop a tribal utility to provide electricity to your community? And so we talked about if you've had them, or if there's possibility to extend lines, things like that. But what is the interest or plans to develop utilities? Yes, no, maybe with more information. And so if you have a response to this, please enter it into the question box. But again, we are looking for feedback from folks right now.
It does look like we have a few hands raised that might have been raised before this first question was presented on screen.
Great. When our staff unmutes you, please introduce yourself and we can make note of your comments. Do we have an active caller?
Yes, I can go ahead and unmute Leah. In one moment.
No.
Yeah, you are free to talk. It looks like you are self-muted.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Leah Postok, and I live here in Oklahoma City currently, and But I have some Indian land in Seminole County, and me and my family, just to talk about one area, there's about 37 acres there, but there's no electric like where my share of land would go, and other people in my family, we've all been wanting to build a home there, but I got a estimate from, I believe it's PSO out of Ada, Oklahoma, and they did an estimate to figure out how much it's going to cost me to run electric from the nearest pole, and it was going to cost me $6,000. So I just stopped at that point because I still need to build a road there, and I think I'm going to be working on that pretty soon. But that's the problem that I'm having, and I'm going to be talking with a lot of other people in that in the area to find out what their problems are, because I've heard of a lot of people needing roads built, but a lot of people aren't using their Indian land because there's no electric.
Okay. Thank you for your comment.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, I
Thank
have
you.
Next, I have Chief Gary Harrison.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
First of all, thank you, and hello, Wahla. I haven't seen you in quite a while. Congratulations on your new job. And Tommy, I noticed that you're from Naknek, or part of, anyhow, I've been to Naknek also. But what I was hoping to get out of this was how to get more resources for the energy projects that we would like to have. And some of the questions, I'm not sure about the questions. A couple of them, they didn't really make sense to me, but that's just me generally. But my main one is, how do we go about getting resources to have energy projects in our communities? We're able to connect to the grid, but the electric company isn't too keen on having other people provide electricity. It's like competition. So this is one of the problems we have here, and I would like to know a little bit more on how to ensure that once you have an energy project, you can sell it to the local energy producer, and how to get the funds to have your own energy production. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And we can set up calls with one-on-one calls with folks if or we can provide email correspondence. We do have a lot of information that we provide regularly to folks about funding and technical assistance and the things that Lazana was mentioning earlier about our program. And so we do have a lot of information available to send out to folks and different resources, and that can be for both of the comments so far.
I would, this is Lazana, I would also add that this report and getting that, data back to Congress may also help in that regard. We don't know what Congress is going to do with the report, but I think the more that they understand the problem, it might be useful as well.
Do we have more hands raised, Kim?
Yes. Next is Daniel Wiggins. Daniel, you are able to talk.
Thank you. I was trying to unmute myself by myself earlier, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk, first of all. Great discussion. Bad River was one of the tribes who benefit from a DOE project. So first of all, we're very appreciative, and through that project, I think, one, we were able to identify a lot more gaps whether it's a good thing, but they are still gaps. And I think one of the things even the person before this highlights is kind of the relationship with the utilities. I think utilities can restrict, and they can also control interconnections and how those are developed. But I do think there is specific pathways that maybe the DOE can help tribes with a clear understanding of kind of how those utilities presence play a role in the tribe's future, whether they're on tribal lands or not on tribal lands. There's an abundance of questions, I think, around what utilities, how they're regulated, and kind of how what they say, how does that hold weight, in the actual regulation world, because at the end of the day, even though they are still bound, someone is still regulating them, they're still bound by doing certain things. And sometimes I think tribes really don't have a clear understanding of whether this is just a utility trying to flex and say, hey, we're not going to let you do this because we don't know what you're going to do as a tribe, whether it is a tribal utility authority. I think that can get into, kind of muddy waters in itself when you have other utilities on a presence. So not to open up a Pandora's box, but I think there's a whole understanding of utilities and how their presence on tribal lands and the regulations behind them, which I think would be nice to see DOE really dive in and open the Pandora's box, I guess I'll say.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Yep.
Next, we have Pilar Thomas, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but you are unmuted and have the floor. It looks like you may still be self-muted.
We still can't hear you, Pilar, if you can hear me.
We can come back to you. For now, let's move on to Joseph Mute. You are self-muted, but you have the floor.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. With today's technology, we have generation, we have renewable, and then we have battery storage. But when the generators go off, we're in the dark. How can we get something so instead of the customers going dark, they can feed off of the renewable and battery, because all of these are currently connected mainly to the generator. Because when that happens, where customers are losing the essential need of their house equipment, which are freezers. So that that's out here in Alaska, that's essential. As when freezers go out, it's kind of hard to replace them right away. It may take maybe up to 6 months to find a replacement. Especially with today's pandemic going on. But can you provide technology like that so when when the main generators go out, instead of the customers going dark, the others can kick in automatically.
This is Lazana. I would recommend maybe if you consider submitting a technical assistance request, and we can, talk one-on-one about your situation and see what we could do to help you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And would you like to take a few more comments and feedbacks on this question?
So with the hands raised, and I assume that could be about any topic, not just the one that's on the screen right now. And so we can go through the hands raised first before going to questions, if that's if there are still hands raised.
Okay, yes, we have a few hands left. Next up, Kehlani Booth, you are unmuted on my end, and I believe you're still self-muted, but you have the ability to speak.
Hello, good afternoon, Leah. Everybody there. Thank you for taking this call. Thank you for all your service as well. It's greatly appreciated to have all this help from the Department of Energy. And once again, thank you again for the assistance that we got here on the island. We're moving forward on some of the things there. There's a little bit of hiccups there, but I think we can come through. One question I had too was, and I've had it before, maybe some more assistance also in dealing with these utilities back and forth. I know that, when we went to Phoenix in 2020, it was really inspiring seeing all those different utilities working together. And I know in Southeast Alaska here, it's real tough. But as we get more interconnected with the broadband and the we're focused so hard on getting these infrastructures in place. I think also for us here, the emphasis needs to be on our relationships together as well. We've got in our area, you've got a lot of microgrids that have worked together, never ever worked together on anything. And reinforcing the need for all of us to work together, and maybe having somewhat of a mediator and someone with those services that can come and talk with us both. Like right now, we're trying to get a power sales agreement with the city of Ketchikan. We're working on that, but to be able to have someone from the DOE with experience in bringing these utilities together and showing us that, because I have the vision, we can all work together on these things, but having that assistance would be very, very helpful. But thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Pilar Thomas, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, we can try again there in a minute. Kirk Vinish, you just have to unmute yourself on your end, and you should be able to speak.
We are unable to hear you right now. And okay, James, if you could put instructions into the chat for folks to know how to unmute themselves if possible, if there's an issue with that.
All right, we can go ahead and move to Stefan Peterson. Go ahead.
Are they self-muted as well?
Stefan, it looks like you are not on mute if you would like to provide your feedback.
Hello, Stefan? We're still unable to hear.
Okay, we will go ahead and move to Mayane.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, Wahla, and everybody. This is Mayani Barudin from Santo Domingo, Pueblo, New Mexico. It's nice to see you. I had a couple of questions or just general comments in vein with what was said earlier about utilities. I agree and hope one day that tribes will be able to form their own utilities, but I'm also aware that it's a longer term process and requires significant capacity on the tribe side. And then, just seeing with COVID and all of the other places and ways that tribes are pulled right now, I also see it as, in some ways, an unfortunate opportunity cost for other priorities that tribes have at the moment. So it would be helpful to know, aside from forming utilities, what tribes can do in the interim and pathways to have better net metering and interconnection processes with tribes and their utilities. And then on that same note, we see a lot of success stories of tribes who do have renewable energy development and success with their utilities. But those benchmarks of success and comparison often seem difficult at times because it really is dependent on the tribe and their utility and other circumstances at play. So aside from forming utilities, which I hope we all do, I'd also just love to learn any other opportunities for policy, regulatory, or programmatic measures to help levelize the playing field for all tribes. Just thinking about those who are on IOUs or rural electric distribution co-ops and have different wholesale providers, just ways that tribes as sovereign nations can, in a way, assert their sovereignty without having to go or in parallel with forming their own utilities.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, Mindy Nat, you are self-muted, but once you unmute yourself, you have the floor.
Hello?
Hello. We can hear you.
Hi. Okay.
Hello.
My name is Mindy Nat. I'm a council member for the Yurok tribe, and we're located in Northern California. And I just wanted to tell you my recent experience. So I have a little tiny family. I have a little baby, and we run off gas generator. And so we went to town, and we were at the generator spot, and they said they're not going to sell generators in California no more. So we're like immediately like what are we going to do, because that's our source of energy. That's our only source of energy. And so I'm thankful that you guys are giving us the opportunity to talk and to tell our story, because there's a lot of people who are not connected to the grid. And so we need help with the funding and the infrastructure to get connected to the grid, and to provide solar, I think, is a good thing, to do multiple things. Because like in my area, we have lots of rain during the winter time, and then sun during the summertime. And so we need multiple sources of renewable energy. And just to be connected to the grid, it's going to cost like $250,000 just to get to my house alone. And so that's how far it is from the electricity. And then, and then another thing that I fought for is to get funding to fund the plan for the whole reservation. And so the council approved it. So we got $450,000 to do a plan that was just for 1 year. And the idea was to do a 3-year plan, but we only had limited funds. So if we could do something like that where we're, you know, providing funds or resources available for the plan for, you know, to what kind of energy we need and what is more important or is really needed. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your feedback.
Yep. Let me just say a little bit. I appreciate all the comments and want to encourage more input from you all. And it's unfortunate to hear the last comment be made that you know, the lack of access to transmission and families resorting to generators, and even if that's not available, then what next? And I think these are the struggles that we hear from a lot of communities. I grew up without electricity. My family still doesn't. They live miles from the transmission line. So we know that there's a significant issue here when it comes to access. And I'm glad that this report was initiated last year. And the more input we have from you, the better that we can implement these solutions that are coming from you too, and but also build a stronger case of why this is important to address energy access and reliability. And it could be beneficial to your nation as well and your community to advocate for the change that is needed in your community, but also to go for resources and funding. Right now, there's not a lot of information out there that shows how many homes, how many tribal members don't have access to power. And I think this is a time for us to really hear you and hear all of the comments. And I just appreciate, again, everyone for taking the time these couple hours. And I know it's all precious, but you know, your input is really valuable. So just wanted to encourage you to continue to submit comments or speak up. And I'm sorry if we're having technical issues too, but we hope to hear from you.
Okay, Alveda Martinez, you are ready to go.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
I feel good now that I'm technology, I can get through. I was really hoping to hear what Pilar had to say. Alveda Martinez, I'm with the Walker River Paiute Tribe. We're in northwestern Nevada. Couple of issues. Well, we always have a hard time getting any funding. We've been trying to, you know, develop geothermal on our reservation. We know it's a high cost renewable energy, but it's something that we know we have. So, you know, we have a heck of a time. We apply for funding through DEMD all the time, and it's like, you know, we get turned down pretty regularly. So that project is moving slow. Another thing that's happening right now, though, there's what they call a Greenlink transmission line that's being started from down southern Nevada, coming up to northern Nevada, 469 miles of new transmission line. Right now, it's proposed to cross our reservation in 2 locations. But what I'm seeing, I'm kind of the point of contact for this project, which is it's a Nevada energy project, is that, again, I realize that I don't have the technology savvy, so I'm going to have to be requesting some technical assistance. You know, we were thinking, is this something that we might have a substation? Is, again, like a couple of the other gentlemen were saying, is, you know, what if we did, you know, of course we want to develop renewables on our reservation, whether it's geothermal, solar. But again, how do we sell it? In Nevada, it's Nevada Energy has the monopoly on all the utilities for power here. And it's really hard. I know I've talked to Pilar a little bit about this because she's got a, you know, great background in renewables, but it's just what I realize is our tribe, we don't have the staff or the technical people that we need. You know, again, it's great listening to the other tribes here. You know, yeah, we do need a plan, you know, but we need somebody that has the technology in the renewables, understands electricity, transmission lines, things like this. Because what this power line, this big transmission line, what they're doing is they're focusing on getting power up to what they call USA Parkway, which is close to Reno, Nevada, where all of the big companies are. That's where Elon Musk is. All of the big buildings are all coming in force up in that area. So they're really looking to get energy to them, you know. But again, what could we do to jump on the bandwagon, you know, from our reservation here? So again, it's something that's kind of moving along. This transmission line project, you know, it's got about a 5-year life before it'll, you know, get into the construction phase. So we really need help with that. Again, talking about Nevada Energy, last year our tribe, you know, when we got some of this this funding, we put in a bunch of some homes for our homeless people. They, over a year now, no electricity hooked up to them, over a year, you know. And it's like, I know our tribe has been trying to get them hooked up, finally got some. They finally came back and told us like a month ago that, oh, okay, now you guys need to put in poles. Now you need to do this or do that. But over a year, I mean, it's like, that's ridiculous. You know, in the comments when we were doing the questions, we're at like the end of the line here where our reservation is. So every time the wind blows, we're out. We're like, okay, wind's blowing. Everybody go get gas before the electricity runs out. Charge your phone because it's going to go out. It's almost guaranteed. So that's a pretty regular basis. But again, we want to get involved in renewable energy. We're sitting right between 2 military bases, Fallon Naval Air Station, Hawthorne Ammunition Depot. You know, again, we need help. And what could we do? Maybe we could sell power to those military installations. You know, I think we're in an ideal location. But again, what it comes down to is funding. Again, I'm going to go online and I'll be requesting some technical assistance. But right now, the technical assistance that I think we need emergent, you know, really soon is on this big transmission line that's going to be coming through our reservation. But again, from what I'm hearing though today is, you know, tribes, we need help in dealing with these power companies. You know, that's, like one guy said, that's a Pandora's box. But how do we, as tribes, develop our relationships with them? It sounds like a lot of negotiation, but hopefully Department of Energy can help in that. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Just a quick friendly reminder that if you no longer wish to speak and have your hand raised, to please click on the hand-shaped icon next to your name to lower your hand. Next, we have Teresa Taylor. You are unmuted and have the floor. Hi, Teresa. Is there a comment you would like to add?
We can't hear you yet, Teresa. Teresa. Okay.
Okay. Thomas Conroy.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thank you for taking the time for this webinar. My name's Tom Conroy. I am located in New Mexico and have been in the power generation business for more than 40 years. I've joined this call because I'm currently working with as a startup company with a partner, and we are working to develop some very long duration or seasonal duration pumped storage hydro projects across New Mexico and Arizona. There are some highly favorable sites on the Navajo Nation, and we have been meeting recently with some of the local chapters who are just overwhelmingly sort of supportive of exploring this and taking advantage of the potential economic development and jobs and infrastructure advantages that a project like this could bring. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar projects, kind of in the $3 to $4 billion range. And of course, as everybody may know, pump storage hydro projects have zero emissions. They're large projects, but they don't bring any pollution whatsoever into the region. And it's similar to the gentlewoman who just spoke, that these local chapters, of course, they don't have the resources to evaluate a project like this. What does it mean? How should they evaluate it? What should it mean for local infrastructure? Just 100 questions, of course. And the people that we're speaking with, of course, are very, highly capable and interested, but they don't have 40 years of power generation experience, for example, as I do. And so they're looking for some support, both technical and business, and I think those would be the principal areas. And does the Office of Tribal Energy, I'm sorry, I think that's the name, do you have any plans to be providing resources to chapters who are engaged in a discussion like this with us?
All right. Thank you for your comments, and we will make notes of that. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Sherry Green, if you have a comment you would like to make, you are self-muted, but have the opportunity to speak. Sherry Green, is there a comment you would like to provide? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. We'll go ahead and come back in a bit. Ari Zwick.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm with the Forest County Potawatomi, and I've traditionally worked on DOE funding opportunities. And we've submitted a comment in another form, but I just wanted to reiterate it here that when we're applying for DOE grants, and I think we responded to an RFI about how more tribes could apply to DOE grants and things like that. And one of the biggest barriers that we've been encountering is that we have had several successful DOE funded projects, but specifically in regards to energy planning and assessment, there's a very large gap in getting funding for example, energy audits or retro commissioning or different site assessments. We've also run into design assistance issues, and so the point I'm trying to get at is the getting projects shovel ready has been very difficult when applying for DOE funding opportunities, and I think that's the biggest thing that we're struggling with, and particularly in regards to President Biden's plan of having a very aggressive timeline for implementing climate change measures. I think the best investment that DOE or anyone could make is to fund as many energy assessments as possible, because a lot of those projects have very favorable paybacks on their own. But if you don't have the money to upfront those costs, they're just kind of sitting there. And we've been stuck for a few years now trying to get audit money and other planning assistance money. And so we have all these projects that we can't do because we don't have the funding to investigate. And I just wanted to kind of communicate that message of how important it is to create more opportunities. I think the last one that I'm aware of was the DOE First Steps towards implementing, I can't remember the full name of the opportunity, but it was like 5 years ago, I think. And we were also very interested in funding for demonstration projects as well as smaller scale demonstration projects. The DOE research grants are usually, I think they start at $2 million or something like that. And we're thinking like even $50,000 to $200,000 projects of just small scale things that would work better on tribal lands, I think, for smaller facilities and different projects that might be better suited towards tribal communities rather than these very large commercial projects and things like that. So those were the two biggest things I wanted to communicate during this, is the energy planning and demonstration funding. And thank you.
Ari, this is Lazana Pierce, and there are a number of opportunities through EDA and through DOI for planning, as well as some planning support through our technical assistance. So if you want to contact us offline, we can provide some information as well on other potential resources.
Okay, sure, thank you.
Okay, Cassie Scott. It looks like you are self-muted. If you click on the red microphone, you should be able to unmute yourself and provide your comment. It looks like Cassie might be offline, so we'll go ahead and move to the next hand. Carrie Ivory. It looks like you are you are unmuted.
I am unmuted. I'm the tribal administrator at Native Village of Ezinki, and I had asked a question in the chat, but I don't know if anybody saw it. I missed a great deal of the conference. Is this being recorded? Is there some way I can get a recording or a summary of it?
Yes, both. We will record it. It is being recorded, and we will be putting the slides and on the website soon, and it takes us about a week or two to get the recording formatted to go on the website. But yes, there will be resources available.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Petla Noden, you are self-muted, but if you click on the red microphone, there you go. You have the floor.
Hi, my name is Petla Node, and I'm from Dillingham, Alaska. That's 40 miles north of Batnick, where this gentleman is from. And yeah, I'm a commercial fisherman. My grandpa wrote a book about sailboat days, salmon with sailboats. And we have windmills in Dillingham, blades on them, that ran pretty much a light bulb and a coffee pot. But now Dillingham is run solely on diesel, and our average consumption is around 2.1 megawatts, jumping up to like 4.9 in the summer. Three operational canneries, got the regional hospital there, which consumes around a third of our load at any given time. But in the winter, which actually correlates to the highest, windiest time of the year, our load goes down to 1.9 megawatts, and it's pretty low. And I have 40 acres of land in a very windy area, and it's just 7 miles south of the furthest southern road in Dillingham. If you Google Maps Dillingham, Alaska, you follow the furthest southern road, and you go 7 miles south of that road, there's a point, that Coffee Point. My grandfather, Walter Noden, he retained that land during the land grab, INCSA, and 1972, December 18, I think, the state was divided up. Native people got to pick some land, and we had retained a little bit of our land, so I ended up with that land, and now I want to develop it. And what better way to represent the interests of our people and our land, animals, and air, and our fish than to develop a wind farm. So I did a lot of studying on this, and I've been looking into it for the past 10 years, but I'm working full-time as a carpenter. I studied renewable energies and political and environmental sciences at UAA in order to best protect our land, animals, and our water and our air. Specifically to develop wind and to stop the double mine to protect our salmon. As you know, we have the largest salmon runs in the world for red, and we want to protect that for our native people. Looking around at other rivers and other peoples and other natives is just devastating. But anyways, back to the wind. I am 7 miles off the road system and 7 miles away from the grid, and that has been the most challenging part. Looking at the different tribal entities that would have to participate if I did develop a wind farm. You're looking at a 7-mile access road, and as you know, roads in rural Alaska are around $1 million a mile. I studied the loads in Dillingham. I studied the energy consumption. Michigan Cooperative, a power producer, they spend an average of $3.5 million on diesel per year, and they net a little over $7 million in net rev, kilowatt sales, and phone and internet. And they burn diesel, and it's all diesel. And your average homeowner in Dillingham burns an average of $600 in diesel per month in the coldest months of the year. And your average business sometimes up to $30,000 a month in diesel cost to heat. So when I looked at my land, I know that it's windy. I've been there twice before. It's super windy. The nearest wind study that was done in 2003, was commissioned by BBNC. A man named Doug Bach erected a 10-meter tower and found an average 12-mile-an-hour wind speed. And that's a class 3 wind. So what I want to do is I want to figure out exactly what has to be done to conduct a wind study on my property as a tribal member. I belong to Chogyong Tribe, Chogyong Tribal Council, called. But anyway, yeah, I'm just like really hoping to get more dialogue with financiers, developers, and permitters, people who specialize in the studies and who have experience boots on the ground, who know exactly what to do, and what connections, what circles of government from my tribe to my city to my, the surrounding tribes in our state and the federal government, and to really have a streamlined flow of what steps need to be taken to develop a successful wind farm and integrate it onto our diesel grid for a successful high penetration wind diesel system that the rest of the state can follow. Because right now in Dillingham, we're just burning diesel, and the electric company is very comfortable with it because they have the subsidization of power cost equalization, which is a state subsidy, and which is fine and well because we otherwise would be paying, we wouldn't be able to pay, because as you know, the cost of renewable energy is tripled in rural Alaska just because the cost of energy is so high compared to Anchorage, where I'm at right now, where they have natural gas and it's super cheap. But like the cost of energy in Dillingham would be so much more. So what I want to know is who I can collaborate with to get, the ball rolling, and the smallest steps. I already have a business plan, and it's like really hard for me to even look into some little tiny cost analysis as far as, picking out the right turbines, what type of integration systems, what type of batteries would be best according to the wind speeds. Do we need 3-phase transmission lines? And who are the people who are going to be boots on the ground, and such and such and such, and what circles of government have to have buy-in, and who has to sign what and such. So I'm just like, how do I navigate this as just a tribal member and a landowner?
Okay, great. Thank you for your comments. And something that I'd like for I think to address this question, and actually all of them so far, is a reminder of our program review here in a couple of weeks, starting on the 15th. There are a lot of projects that are similar to what folks are talking about today that involve utilities or microgrids or wind projects in Alaska. Individual homeowners getting solar on their homes by partnering with the tribe and grid alternatives. There's a lot of different things that are happening. And at our program review, that's discussed. And it's what we did to get here, the pitfalls that we've seen so far, the things that worked. And the other great part about the program review is you can see the folks who are talking about this, who have experience with it, and then you can partner with their tribe or with, something like that. There's connections to be made. And so we encourage a lot of folks to attend that program review to get ideas or contacts for their community. And Kim, we can go to the next question, please. Comment.
I believe there's been a few questions that have come in through the questions box. James, would you like to read those?
Sure. These are questions from Sherry Green, who was unable to, her mic wasn't working, so she asked that we, read them here. The first one is, what resources are available for an individual tribal member to begin their own business? And are there technical assistance for individuals? And then she has a few more. I'm not sure if you want me to just read them all or.
Well, to quickly respond, our office's statute limits us on who we can work with. And so that's tribal governments and tribally authorized organizations like a tribal utility authority. And so our office does not work specifically with individuals, but a lot of individuals do benefit from the grants from our programs. Like I just mentioned, the grid alternatives, putting solar on folks' homes. We do not have a business incubator program as well. We can, again, for anyone who wants more information, we're mostly in listening mode right now, but for further dialogue, you can feel free to write us at indianenergy.org at hq.doe.gov.
Thanks, Tommy. I'm sorry, it's kind of kludgy to try to find the specific questions. We have so many comments coming in. I think you just addressed your second question, which is how do we get access to those resources? She can reach out to the Office of Indian Energy. Sorry. My scrolling keeps resetting. All right.
Okay. If there's, are there more from Sherry?
If you, no, I mean, I think there might be, but I'm having difficulty finding them because they just keep moving. Yes, I have one here. Hopefully it doesn't move with me. Can individually owned tribal energy LLCs gain access to technical assistance and grant solicitations? And who is the contact?
You can visit our technical assistance. Sorry, go ahead, Lazana.
Yeah, say that again, James. What kind of LLC?
Yes, individually owned tribal energy LLCs.
So, as Tommy said, our statute really defines who our constituent base are, which are, tribes, Alaska Native villages, tribal subsidiaries or instrumentalities, tribal energy development corps, and such. We may be able to provide, information to individuals or individual businesses, but our statute limits our ability there. But they're welcome to send an email to the Indian Energy email box, and we can assess it further. I mean, that's kind of limited information, and see if there's other resources we might recommend.
Great, that's it for Sherry. Let's move back to raised hands.
Okay, and it looks like we have a few more raised hands. If you have not, or if you have spoken already and your hand is still raised, if you could please lower that to make sure that we can get to those who have not yet had the opportunity. Don Stewart, it looks like, yep, you have the floor.
I'm Don Stewart, the holder of procuration for the United States Citizen Investment Group and their mentors. And we are looking for contractual agreement with one or two or three of the Native American responsible people for the land, which in which we will invest multiple green energy devices, which will pay by themselves with the sale of electricity and heating, cooling, air conditioning. So it's a win-win situation. This program is called OUI program and participates in the 2024-2025 Department of Energy Solar Energy contest in United States, and initially is actually building the 21st century housing units, which each has the production of calculated production of green energy, which will pay back entirely the investments in the house and in the green energy package. Waiting for contact from various Native American leaders to contract the terms and conditions acceptable to all parties concerned. We are based in southern Nevada and Henderson City, which is a rich neighborhood of Las Vegas. So, of course, in pandemic times, we will prefer to contract with Nevada Native American leaders, but I heard about California, I heard about Arizona. We are not particular for Nevada, but the geothermal.
Sir, I wanted to interject here, and so our office does not do a matchmaking of sorts with different consultants with tribes. We do encourage consultants to reach out directly to tribes, and we do see a lot of consultant participation in our grant awards and things of that nature. But right now we're looking specifically from feedback from tribal communities related to this congressional report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, it looks like we have just a few people left, then we can try again, who we weren't able to communicate with earlier. Pilar Thomas, it looks like you are self-muted. If you would still like to provide a comment, go ahead and click on the red microphone to unmute yourself.
There, did that work?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm on my Samsung tablet, so you know everybody's got a different button in a different spot. I apologize. First of all, thanks again to DOE, Office of Indian Energy, for holding this listening session. I think it's an important way to get information from Indian country and get information to Indian country. I guess I just have a couple of comments and then a couple of questions. The first comment is, you know, as we all are very unfortunately acutely aware, most of the energy infrastructure, electricity infrastructure in Indian country is not owned by the tribes. And so we're all beholden to IOUs and co-ops and maybe even some municipal utility providers. And so I guess one of the challenges we seem to have, of course, then is working within the context of these incumbent utilities. How do we effectively address reliability issues? And not even just access to electricity, but for most of us, it's a reliability problem. So I know that under the 2005 Act, there is language around supporting efforts between tribes and utilities. It's not really clear that those are for reliability type issues, but that certainly is a source of authority for the office to try and address some of these reliability issues vis-a-vis the incumbent utilities. Kind of combined with that is, I know the Office of Electricity Delivery and Reliability, I think that's their name, OE, also has this charge, right, around grid reliability although they tend to be focused on the big grid. And with the exception of California and Texas, where they shut off the big grid or the big grid gets shut off for weather-related reasons, again, the rest of us are dealing with reliability issues in the little grid. So my question is, what are our opportunities to work with OE around what are really at the heart grid reliability issues and some of the work they're doing with whether it's NARUC or others to address the costs of grid reliability, the technology around grid reliability. Are there opportunities within your grant program to leverage what OE is doing, for example, to help tribes around grid reliability, and especially those tribes that have acute reliability problems? Some tribes don't have to worry about it. They're on, what might be affectionately called a presidential grid, but a lot of tribes do have these huge reliability problems because they're on co-op systems, which are notoriously unreliable. So that's kind of the comment. And then the question around really working with folks like OE, other DOE, other parts of DOE where the grid reliability is their charge. And so how do we work with them? Is it going to be helpful to have a follow-up conversation with OE in the room so they can hear directly from tribes as well and maybe work into some of their programs around grid reliability? So that's the kind of question and comment. So thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to working with you guys more on this.
Thank you, Pilar. And I think we agree that OE should be in the room, particularly when programmatic functions for their office are discussed. So yeah, I think a follow-up with that office would definitely be beneficial. Kim?
Yes, we can move on to Stefan Peterson. You are now unmuted. Stefan Peterson.
Here.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to Kirk Finish. I believe we tried. Okay, looks like you're unmuted.
Well, thanks for giving me the time to talk. I'm sorry I had to step away earlier. My name is Kirk Vinish. I'm with the Lummi Nation Planning and Public Works Department. One of the concerns we have that might be helpful for your information gathering and report. Right now, we need federal regulations to assist tribes with power infrastructure when the local utility does not have easements or permission to be on the reservation. And how do you resolve that not only legal environment, but how to facilitate maybe a resolution amicably when the tribe would like to be their own power provider? I know other tribes like the Yakima have been successful in that, but a clearer pathway to make that happen would be very useful. And even if it's just the opportunity to have a federal agency or representatives to facilitate meetings would be useful too also. So just some thoughts for you to consider as you go forward with your work. That's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Joseph Mute, looks like you are self-muted. Joseph Mute, it looks like you're self-muted. If you click on the red microphone, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go.
I sent a message and I said my what I had to say and ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We will see all the comments.
Taking a quick look to see who else has their hand raised. And it looks like we were able to call on everyone. Unfortunately, a few have had audio issues, but if there are any comments you would like to make, please feel free to place those in the questions box.
Okay, I think now we're going to end the session, and I'm going to turn over to Director Johns. For myself personally, thank you so much for all of you participating and providing input. It really does help us, and we hope that what it means is it helps Indian country. We know that a strong Indian country means everyone benefits. Local communities surrounding tribes benefit. And so we want to see this progress made in Indian country. So thank you all for your time. And it's my honor to turn it over to our great director, Wahla Johns.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Kim and Brandon, and everyone who from the Office of Indian Energy who helped to put this session on, and all of you that participated today, that offered comments in the chat, but also through email, and then hearing your voices. And just want to say thank you. Some familiar voices, and I just really appreciate Chief Harrison, and also Mayani and Pilar, and then others that I have not met yet, but I heard your voice. And so this is really good for us as an office to hear the strategies you have and the challenges, and it's all related. I know this topic is around energy access and reliability, and as you are all planning your projects, it's related to creating that sovereignty, that energy sovereignty that we are trying to promote through our office and our initiatives within our programs. Is that we want, like as Tommy mentioned, nations to be stronger, our communities to be stronger, our people to be stronger. And a lot of times when you don't have access to power, that means you don't have access to many things like refrigeration. And that puts more cost on your, on your wallet to be able to, provide foods for your home and your family. It also means you don't have access to maybe Wi-Fi. How are you supposed to power, technology? And so I think that these are some of the lessons that I have seen as far as like learning around not having access, and now finally having that in certain areas in Indian country, have seen a shift in the way that it increases productivity within homes, productivity within community, productivity as a nation. And so that's really what we're trying to support. And so I just want to say thank you again from the bottom of my heart. And I hope you have a good rest of the day and evening wherever you're at. And stay warm, stay safe, and take care.
Thank you. Have a good day. Take care.